Velkommen tilbake. De som fortsatt står bak ved lunsjen og henger, lunsjen ferdig. Så kom gjerne og sett dere litt nærmere scenen. Jeg håper lunsjen smakte, og at dere klare for andre del av dagen i dag. Vår neste foredragsholder og første internasjonale foredragsholder i dag heter David Arnoux og kommer fra selskapet Growth Tribe, hvor han har rollen som Head of Growth og var en av medgründerne av selskapet. Han har fortalt oss at favoritthobbyene hans å bygge prediktive modeller og gjennomføre såkalte 5-sekunders-tester. Ikke vet jeg hva det men jeg skulle ønske det var hobbyene mine. Og han har også en YouTube-kanal med samme navn som selskapet Growth Tribe. Om foredraget sitt i dag så sier han følgende, og da switcher jeg over til engelsk. Building products isn't enough. Marketing channels are saturated. Rapid experimentation and growth marketing skills help you beat the competition and keep growing. Growth comes from a mix of behavioral psychology, coding, creative marketing, and data analysis. Having spent the last couple of years building, coaching, and training regiments of growth teams and growth marketers, in this talk, David will run through some of the latest stories, learnings, and tricks we've learned along the way. A brief but information-packed power session covering the process, mindset, and tools that will help you on your journey towards a more consumer-centric, experiment, and data-driven organization. Long sentence. This all sounds very exciting, so welcome up on the stage, David.
Hey everybody, super excited to be here. My name's David. I'm the co-founder of a company called Growth Tribe. A couple things before I get started. I tend to speak a little bit fast. They also call the slot after lunch the suicide slot. So I'll just try to keep you awake, try to keep the motion kind of fast. And second thing, what I'm going to be presenting is not an exact science. So you're all free to call bullshit whenever you want if you don't believe in something that I say. It creates some interesting interactions sometimes, if you dare to. I dare you to. Cool, so I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to cover in the next 45 minutes. I'll give you a super quick intro about Growth Tribe, our company. We've just launched in Norway. Well, sort of today. I guess this is kind of the launch here at Epicenter. I'll talk to you about the mindset of what we teach, some of the tactics. I'll go into the process, and then I'll explain to you some first steps if you want to implement this within your organization. And like I said, I'm going to throw a lot of information at you and just sort of keep what you find interesting. So we're Growth Tribe. We're kind of a young company. We're 3 years old, but we've grown quite fast. We're about 90 people now across Europe, with our biggest office in Amsterdam and our sexiest office in Norway, of course. And what we do is we used to be a consulting firm, and now we're a training organization. And I'll explain to you why we switched from consulting to training. We're a digital partner for companies through training and talent. What we see is that technology is growing exponentially. However, your skills or your people skills, once they hit the workforce, they tend to grow logarithmically. And the landscape keeps changing and changing and changing. This is a little bit my personal journey. I started out in marketing and building companies 12 years ago. And all I needed to know was a bit of email marketing and a bit of SEO. And every year it seems that there's new capabilities that I need to understand to add to my tool set, or else this big gap forms, the latest of which was machine learning, which I had to learn a year ago. I was really tired by then, and then somebody told me, now I have to understand supervised and unsupervised learning. And funnily enough, we find out it's not that difficult to teach these skills to people. You don't always need the expert inside your organization. You can actually do this yourself thanks to some tools. What we also see is that companies are complex adaptive systems. They're complex, means there's a lot of variables, both internally and externally. They're adaptive. These variables are always changing, and it's a system, which means it can be overlapped or all linked together. And what we've seen over the past 3 years being involved with digital transformations is that organizations tend to only focus on the organizational structure with holacracy or building the Spotify model, agile teams, multidisciplinary teams, but everyone forgets the core element at the center of these systems, which is the human being. And we need to make our human beings more flexible, more agile, more adaptive than ever before for our companies to be able to adapt more quickly to change. So how do we do this? We do this through training, what we call speed learning. So what we condense very difficult topics in very short amount of time so that anybody in this room is capable of doing this, and we know you're busy, so we try to make it straight to the point, and we teach the 5% that you'll use sort of 90% of the time. We also do it with extremely practical teaching. You don't learn to be a kung fu master by watching Bruce Lee movies. You actually have to practice it. And then finally, usually on cutting-edge skills. I think what's interesting, if I was to summarize the company, we try to make human beings and teams 80% self-reliant within organizations. I don't want you to depend on a copywriter for copywriting, on a designer for design, on an agency to test some assets anymore. We believe that these capabilities can be built into every human inside the organization, and we've proven it now. We've trained 10,000 people. That's our milestone next month. We've proven that anybody's capable of doing this. And the tool set we use is called Growth, so it's these 4 things. We use a mix of data and testing, of behavioral psychology, understanding the human brains, the biases, the persuasion tactics, creative marketing or creativity in general. And this used to say coding and automation, but now there's so many tools out there, it's actually coding and automation. And at the center of this, we call this growth. We can call it growth hacking, growth marketing. Now we just call it growth in general. Now, the way that we brainwash sort of people and the way that we brainwash organizations is by going through this pyramid. So in my talk, I'm going to go through this pyramid a little bit. First, we need to get everybody on the right mindset, right? Some of you in this room already have the mindset, so some of you are already brainwashed, let's say. You can use this story to do it on others, and for others, this might be interesting. This is actually one of my favorite stories of having the right mindset. I suspect there's highly educated people in the room today. Does anybody know who this is by any chance? If I just show you his picture, or if you can read traditional Japanese characters at the bottom. Anybody? Okay, now you'll know, right? If I show you his name. Any guesses? Okay, interesting. So this is Takeru Kobayashi, a very important person to me and to this world. He is the world international champion and record holder of the Coney Island hot dog eating contest. And this is him stuffing himself with 52 hot dogs in 12 minutes. The first time he participated in the Coney Island hot dog eating contest, the world record was 25, and he ate 52 hot dogs the first time he participated. And so this is him, eating the hot dogs. And people were amazed. They didn't even have enough plastified boards anymore because they didn't expect somebody to destroy the competition like this. And what's really interesting is he wasn't genetically put on this planet to be the world hot dog eating contest. He's 1.67 m and he's 72 kilograms. He's up against people who were put on this planet to eat sort of hot dogs genetically. Yet he destroyed all of them. He crushed them. And the question is, what did he do differently? He won 3 years in a row. Then everybody copied his style. He did 3 things differently. The first thing he did was relentless experimentation in his apartment in Nagawa for 6 months. How can I eat hot dogs faster than the competition? If I eat asparagus, does it expand my esophagus? If I do sports or weightlifting, can I eat them faster? So he did experiments for 6 months. And his 2 experiments that worked were experiment 112 and 143. I'm getting the numbers wrong, but it's after the 100. You could tell how obsessed he was, huh? He did 2 things differently. The first thing is everybody was eating the sausage with the bread. He decided to separate the sausage from the bread. That had never been done before, because you can cram 12 sausages down your throat really easily, rather than having this mushy substance if you have the sausage and the bread together. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. And the second thing he did is there was a legal loophole in the Coney Island hot dog eating contest. So everybody was allowed to have liquids, and everybody was using liquids just to drink the liquid. But he found sort of a legal loophole in the Coney Island hot dog international guidelines. He started dunking the bread in the liquid so he could pre-chew it, and then he could cram it down his throat a lot easier. He beat the world record 3 years in a row. Destroyed the competition, got endorsements deals from Nathan's, and then everybody started copying his tactic. Right? Everybody was using the tactic that he was, so he couldn't win anymore. And then he diversified into I think it was grilled cheese sandwiches and chicken breasts. Anyway, so yeah. But the idea, what's actually interesting is more that he had this process of experimentation to find out how to beat. Look at the competition when they look at his technique. This man's world has been changed. The paradigm has changed forever. We actually have a Kobayashi scale. for experiments that we run. We believe that 30% of experiments should be high on the Takeru Kobayashi scale. They should be paradigm shifting. The other 70% is best practices, which most companies are not even applying at the moment. We've trained about 900 companies so far, and what we've seen is that whether you're a small startup or scale-up or a project within a large corporate, you better learn to eat hot dogs extremely fast if you want to beat the competition, because the competition is more fierce than it ever was. It's so easy to build products nowadays. What seems to be difficult is distribution and retaining customers. And it's not just about hot dogs. So also one of our gurus, sort of Jeff Bezos from Amazon, we read his letter to shareholders every year, and the theme that keeps coming back is they attribute their success to the sheer quantity of experiments that company is able to run on a yearly, weekly, monthly, daily basis. Read the shareholder letters. It keeps coming back and again and again and again as a theme. And it's not just the Amazons of the world. What we've seen is that these companies that seem to be winning, they don't have much in common. Their revenue models are different, their business models are different, the customer's journey is different. The one variable they do have in common is this process of experimentation within the organization, as opposed to the ones that are a little bit slower. And everybody runs experiments. A project is an experiment, but how many are you running per month or per year? We used to think that the process that I'm going to show you only applies to sort of scale-ups. So we used to only train scale-ups or startups, companies that had gotten funding or pre-product market fit. And then we started to be contacted by larger groups or media agencies, media companies about 2 years ago. And then we actually decided that the process that we share is applicable to any size of company, whether it's extremely big or small, or whether it's very regulated or not regulated. Good luck doing rapid experimentation at Deloitte. Really difficult. We figured it out somehow. So is this just marketing with another name? Sort of. But we think marketing does need another name. It's like same wine, different bottle. It's time to give it a different bottle. I'll tell you why it's a little bit different. This is what we see all the time. So you're a consumer product. You've got this new product that's coming out. It's like a shaver. You've got 10 million R&D costs, and then you've got 12 million activation costs. You're going to launch the campaign worldwide. Campaign is what I call a bag of risks. There's so many risks inside campaigns or launches or new features. And then we say, okay, it's January, see you in July, let's see how the campaign went. Tons of risk. Our approach is more of scaling, de-risking and scaling the budgets, scaling the experimentation. We start to test little things, the riskiest assumptions a little bit, to find out what the perfect mix is. And then there's actually no budget. You just scale the budget as you go. And this can also apply to big bang campaigns. It's also totally fine to do big bang campaigns. And in campaigns, we see there's a lot of risks, like what's your target audience, what are the channels, what are the mediums, what's my voice, what are the visuals that we're going to use. And by running these de-risking experiments before the campaign launches, it's possible to de-risk it by like 30, 40, or 50%, so that the campaigns are actually more, or the product launches or the new feature launches are actually more successful. The second biggest difference between sort of growth and marketing is that we actually track the customer on the entire journey. It's what we call the pirate funnel. From awareness, however many touch points you need for that first time that they visit your interface, your website, your product, your app. Acquisition, getting people not to abandon. Activation, getting people to, wow, I need this product in my life moment. Retention, daily, weekly, monthly active users or buyers or readers. Referrals, what we call viral loops, building viral loops. And finally, revenue. So it should actually be an hourglass, and then upselling and cross-selling. And we try to find out where are we bleeding users, money, customers, what do we need to fix first, and then we put a growth team behind it to try to run experiments to fix that part of the customer journey. And traditionally, this is changing, but I still see 90% of companies, I don't know where I get that 90, but the majority of companies, marketing still focuses on the top, and then it's handed over to the product team, whereas a growth team is actually going to track the customer on the entire journey and try to run experiments there. And once you start getting deeper in the customer journey, into activation or retention of customers, then it's much more product intensive. So these teams also tend to be a little bit more technical than your typical sort of marketing team. Slowly but surely, we're dissolving the line between product and marketing and product. It's starting to be this one cross-functional team. This stuff basically came out of Facebook in 2008. That's where the first sort of growth team was built. I hope I'm getting my dates right. The third difference is the team composition, so this cross-discipline team that work together. Although it's really hard, this probably won't be your first step if you try to implement this. Good luck building a growth team. And it's also what happens in your brain, so the human composition. It's what we call building T-shaped individuals. People who have a really wide range of knowledge. They can talk to other departments, to other people, whether they're on the analytical side, the design side, and some deep levels of expertise. This is what we call the T-shaped player of 2019. It's what we think we sort of specialized in building generalists in a way. And I'll get into that a little bit later. And also it's the process, and I'll run through the process in a little bit. Okay, so that's a lot of theory, really nice, nice T-shapes and pie charts. Now I want to dive into some tactics, because that's the fun stuff. It's the most fun stuff, but it's not the most important stuff. So we've picked some things that might be useful for you. And some are really simple, and some are a little bit more complicated. These are all tactics that were run by people that we trained who were not experts in these things. So we actually have 12,700 tactics indexed that you can use on the entire customer journey, and I'll share with you sort of 3. The first one is digital marketing. I'll stay purely at the top of the customer journey. What we see is, from a behavioral psychology point of view, your customers are bombarded on a daily basis with triggers, right? Everyone's trying to grab their attention. And as human beings, I think it's 250 to 10,000 triggers per day, especially from advertising. We couldn't survive if we didn't develop attentional filters, where we only pay attention to certain things. We can't let everything through. So our job as digital marketeers is to try to get people to pay attention. There's about 20 channels through which you can get people to pay attention. And if you start mixing and matching them, there's an infinite amount of combinations possible. And usually you need multiple touch points before somebody actually comes to a product or service. And some channels go through phases. So some channels are new, and some channels suffer what we call the law of shitty click-through rates, where nobody clicks anymore and you need to be sort of a consultant to be able to figure it out. So a lot of the time we try to focus on new channels that are up and coming that aren't tapped into yet. One of our favorite at the moment, it's called engineered marketing. It's building small tools that generate leads. I'll give you an example. This is a company we trained in London. They're called Adzuna, super competitive market. It's a job ad platform. Good luck with SEO and with SEM strategies for a jobs platform. So what they did is actually they thought, maybe we can build a small tool to attract people. And I don't know if this trended in Norway at all, but they built this small tool called Value My CV. This was built by non-coders. So basically what you did is you could upload your CV, or you could link your LinkedIn. And so this is a marketplace, right? They're trying to get as many resumes as possible on a weekly basis. And the idea was that you would upload your CV in there, and there was a small sort of questionnaire. And in the end, it would give you how much you're worth as an individual. And what's really interesting there is they were a little bit sneaky. They don't do it anymore. They would increase your value by like 15%. So they created a little bit of pain that maybe you need to change jobs. And there was also an email template called Email My Boss, like, hey, Joe, we need to talk. They were generating 10 to 20,000 resumes on a weekly basis. Customer acquisition cost, the lead acquisition cost, 0. Just the cost of prototyping this. And then it was all over The Verge, Hacker News, Reddit, all those things. Beautiful. Customer acquisition cost close to 0. It works so well now if you go to their website, they don't even have a value proposition anymore. No more aspirational quote. It's just, upload your CV. So that's kind of a nice example. Another example where we're removing the line between product and marketing, marketing and product. This was once again built by non-coders using some nice tools. It was then built by coders once it was actually proven that this works. So they actually embedded it into the platform. If you're still on high competition channels, we usually advise people to pre-optimize. You need to pre-optimize as much as possible, or else you're going to lose money. I'll give you a very specific example. So I'm actually going to go a little bit deeper in the customer journey. Now I'm going to go in the part where you've done your 1 to 20 touch points of people who have actually come to visit your user interface, your website, your app, your product. This is going to apply to 90% of use cases, 95% of use cases. And then we're in the part called acquisition, where you want to make sure people don't abandon you on that first visit, or on that first time they visit you, or that second time. Experiment difficulty, 1 star out of 5. Everybody can do this tomorrow. It's a really simple one. So I like to break down the customer journey of acquisition into 3 parts. First, so when somebody visits your assets, your interface, people make a first impression in 50 milliseconds. The human brain processes images in about 17 milliseconds. So in 50 milliseconds, good to know if you're dating for the first time as well, 50 milliseconds to make a first impression. The second part is what we call the 5 seconds. That's where you made a first impression, you've won 5 seconds to convince people whether, yes, they want to understand what you're trying to sell them or what your value proposition is, yes or no. If you can get past the first 5 seconds, then you get another like 55 seconds where they will read your features, your USPs, look at your video, et cetera, et cetera. This is my favorite piece of research from the past, I think, 10 years, from a usability point of view. It was research that was done by Chao Liu at Microsoft. They analyzed 237,000 websites that all had 10,000 visits each. Basically, they analyzed a lot of pages, and they found this. So this is how long somebody stays on a page. 0 seconds to 120 seconds, and this is the percentage of people who actually stay. On average, they found that after 5 or 6 seconds, 97% of people who have left a page, an app store page, an article. That's sort of the cross-industry average. However, if you can get them past the elbow in the curve, they tend to stay really long. So people either leave really, really fast, or they stay really, really long. We call it the negative aging effect. And what you want is you want them to stay really, really long. And the main reason why they don't stay long is because they have no idea what it is you're trying to sell to them. By the way, this attention thing is getting worse. The NBA is considering shortening the time of basketball games because the kids just have 0 attention spans anymore. Not just the kids. I heard that Snapchat was really big in Norway, so it's also the adults. This is just going to get worse and worse. Has anybody run a 5-second test before, by any chance? A 5-second test? Okay, please do some. I'll show you why. We believe that in 5 seconds, your customers, your target audience, the people visiting your assets, your ads, your campaigns, whatever it is, it's not for nothing that YouTube pre-roll ads stop at 5 seconds, by the way, need to understand within 5 seconds what it is you're offering. What it is you're offering, and we believe that your USP should shine in the first 5 seconds as well. In the first 5 seconds. There's a guy called Steve Krug. He doesn't believe in this theory. He believes in the 8-second rule. You have 3 seconds to shake people out of their boring lives with something that'll shock them, and then you gain another 5 or 6 seconds to actually sell your sauce. So I'll give you an example. This is beautiful. I'll let it up a little bit, try to figure it out. So this is typical hero designer work, and we see this a lot, right? This is actually a really cool USP. Can anybody tell me what they do, by any chance? We're just going to stand here in awkward silence until somebody guesses. Any guesses? It's a phone, right? But we're not too sure why it's special, etc. So this is beautiful hero design. I mean, the arm is amazing. It's got amazing tattoo. You can tell the guy's ripped. You got like the perfect manicure nails, the lighting is perfect, the turquoise is amazing. That's that customized typography that represents the essence of the brand. Inspirational copywriting, everything to gain. Fantastic. However, if I run a small 5-second test on it to a random audience and ask them what are they selling, I get weird stuff. 3 people think it's about unlocking SIM cards for some reason. 1 person thinks it's about Bitcoin, is because there's too much stuff about Bitcoin in the news. Somebody thinks it's about a new search engine, and then the rest, they understand it's a phone, but they already got a phone. They don't understand why it's special. And this was a really nice phone when it was launched because it had unlimited storage in the cloud. Beautiful USP. About 3 people sort of understood what it is that they were selling. We call this a 15% 5-second comprehension rate. We also ran it on 100 and 1,000 people, same results. We also call this an epic fail because that page has been up there for 6 months and it's never been tested, it's never been changed. And most people didn't understand. This gets better the more you watch it. Okay, one more time. It's called Better Every Loop. Just keep doing. Okay, I use a cool tool alert. It's called Crayon.co, and I track all of my competitors with Crayon and all of the companies I look up to, and it sends me a notification as soon as that competitor or that company changes their website. So I was tracking Nextbit because I wanted to know, because I'd sent them some emails, and I was like, when are they going to change their website? And then I get this email saying Nextbit has updated their landing page. I'm like, yes, finally it's worked. My reaching out to them has actually worked. And this is what they did. They added a cloud in the background, which probably took hours to build. By the way, it's really funny to make fun of people's websites. I'd be interested to test yours. And when I redid the 5-second test, now people thought it was like a vaping app, to start smoking, because there's this smoke in the background. And then they tested it again to make it skinnier and stuff, and now you can't even read it. I want to show you, I'm a terrible copywriter. I'm a very, very bad copywriter. This is a startup that we trained in London, and it's an amazing startup. What they do is they help retailers to change the way people discover products. So you have either search or browse, and they wanted a third way to discover product. So what they do, their white label, is you ask 5 or 6 personality-based questions on the website, and then it gives you the ideal product for you. So this is the ideal turntable for me, let's say, based on some questions. The data they're gathering is amazing, by the way. What's interesting there is that, you know, aspirational sort of, like, no idea what they're doing, right? Get the right one the first time with a heart, sounds like a sort of a dating app. So I'm a bad copywriter, but I wanted to show them that I can actually fix this, even by not knowing how to do copywriting, but by using some smart tools. So I use a similar tool. I ran the 5-second test on this, 0% conversion. Nobody knows what they're selling. It's a dating app, turntables. Second one is I made it a little bit like Simon Sinek, the golden circle, the why. There was like 13% of people understood. Then I was like a little bit more to Byron Sharp, a little bit more of the what. 26% of people understood. And I was like, screw Simon Sinek, screw the why. Let's just explain what the hell this thing does. So answer some personal questions to find your ideal product online. And then like 8 out of 10 people actually understood it. So it offers online buying assistance, helping you find products that fit your personality. Yes, I'm now an amazing conversion copywriter. We call this conversion-centric design or conversion copywriting. And when you merge beautiful hero design with conversion-centric design, you have the perfect sort of magic sauce. By the way, so my social life sucks. These are my Thursday evenings. So this is me at 10 p.m. on Thursday. I'd fixed it in 20 minutes, just to show you. And like I said, I'm a really bad copywriter. I'm also a bad coder. This is just one small example. Huh? Maybe your pages are fine, your assets are fine. Yeah, it's like, you might feel like it's not working at first, but if you throw enough spaghetti at the wall, finally, sort of by luck, you sort of nail it in a way. One more time. This is the best part of the presentation. There we go. I'd recommend everybody to do 5-second tests on everything. Social ads, search ads, videos, content marketing, new features. It's so simple. It's what we call pre-optimizing the tippy top of the funnel. Why would you put things consumer-facing if they haven't been optimized at least a little bit? Just for comprehension. Can I understand what it is you're actually selling? Activation is actually my favorite metric to optimize, what we call getting people to the wow, I need this product in my life moment, because it's a lagging. Activation is a lagging indicator of good campaigns, and it's usually a leading indicator of someone who will buy and someone who will be retained. Then there's retention, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly active users, and buyers, which is the most important metric for 80% of business models. Referrals, and then finally revenue. I'll give you a 4 stars out of 5 complexity experiment. So this is a team, this is a company called Asphalt Gold. They sell really cool sneakers out of Germany. And their team, they had a data analyst in there who was like, would it be possible to predict if people are going to buy our product 2 minutes after they land on the platform? Their sales cycle is like 6 minutes. Can we predict if someone's going to buy on the platform 2 minutes after they actually land on the e-commerce store? So this is the customer flow. People visit an e-commerce site, they drop off, engage with the website or drop off, add to cart or drop off, and then purchase or drop off. Add to cart is what we call indicative of the wow moment. And purchase means, well, they purchased, right? So they bought the product. Would it be possible to predict this before it actually happened? So we had really bad data here. We basically had Google Analytics data, all publicly available, well, anonymized data. What country they were from, what device, what was the traffic source, what user type, new or returning, how long they stayed on the site, how many pages visited. Based on these features, these factors, these variables, could this team of non-data scientists predict whether someone would add to cart and whether someone would buy yes or no? And it was beautiful because a group of non-data scientists were able to do a probability distribution using a tool called Data IQ, where basically these people are the least likely to buy, these people are medium likely to buy, and these people are the most likely to buy. And what does a product team do when they have these? They do what we call predictive segmentation. So they change the website according to which predictive segment you were in and start A/B testing on these different segments. Same thing, the same company, can we predict the customer lifetime value of our customers? And it turns out it was also possible. So these customers had a customer acquisition cost to acquire customer that was higher than their predicted customer lifetime value. These ones, good potential, they were sort of in the middle, and these ones were our VIPs. And what's exciting there is that you can start nurturing the good potential ones, by building the pain. You need to dress better to have a better life, a better spouse, you know, try to dress better. And the VIPs, giving them more human attention. So these are a little bit more like complex experiments that you do once you start getting to experiment 40 or 50, once you've got the sort of ball rolling. Like I said, we've indexed about 17,000 experiments. Some of these experiments will work, some will not. We always get asked, what experiment should we be running? I have no clue. Nobody understands your business, your target audience, your customer journey, your pricing model, your strategy, your roadmap better than you do. So we believe that you should be running the experiments, actually. And that's why the process is the most important part of the presentation. We need to try to embed a process of rapid experimentation within companies so that the Takara Kobayashi moments, they come out of this process. And it's usually number 11, number 10 or 11, that's the big bang, wow, this experiment works. And it's really hard to get to that number 10 or 11, really difficult. This is what the typical journey of going through the process looks like. I've sort of averaged all of our clients so far. This is the ROI of experiments, negative ROI, positive ROI. Your first experiments are usually crap. The tracking's not set up correctly, the ideas were bad, it took a really long time. But you want to get past that first sort of big win that gets you a lot more buy-ins inside the organization that you can use as a showcase. And then you get a lot more credibility and you get a lot more confidence to start running better experiments. And I used to be obsessed with the big wins, the big sort of hacks or tricks. Now I'm obsessed with just the sheer quantity of experimentation, because the compound growth at the end of the year grows according to all of these micro experiments that are being run, whether it's on new innovative products, optimizing conversions, or launching campaigns. This is what the growth process looks like. I'll just show you sort of a very short version of the process. This is basically, we just copied the scientific method. And this is basically common sense, right? So what we try to do is we try to gather a team, and where you see the mask at the middle, we have the OMTM, the most important metric that we want to focus on. Which part of the funnel do we want to focus on? Where the mask is there, and then we try to gather as many ideas as possible. Everybody's got great ideas based on internal and external qualitative, quantitative data, based on gut feeling, based on reports we've seen, based on what the competition's doing, maybe based on something you saw at a conference. Then you know how developers have a product and feature backlog? We create an idea backlog. So we create a backlog of ideas on this app that we built called the Grows app, and everybody dumps their ideas. We did some analysis about a week ago, and it turns out some of the best ideas happen on the weekend, not during work hours. It's very democratic. Everybody throws their ideas in there. Then we rank our ideas based on a semi-scientific ranking system. And this is what a ranking session looks like. You try to get as many brains as possible in the room, diverse brains, so developers, there's a marketeer, there's a product owner, there's sales, there's an intern, and there's a video person. You usually want to have a developer in there because they're much more realistic than marketeers. We tend to be super optimistic about everything. And then usually through the ranking, so this is the stuff that we teach. I won't go into too much detail about it. We can talk about it later, of course. You always have 3, 4, 5 experiments that seem to have the highest score. And usually there's 1 or 2 Takara Kobayashi experiments that's a little bit lower. It's just like, yeah, screw it. Let's just do this one based on a gut feeling. So you've got your ranking, and any company has between 3 to 10 experiments that they're going to want to run per sprint. Work in sprints. Then we're going to outline these experiments. Usually an experiment needs to be measurable, easier said than done, tracked correctly, both the qualitative and the quantitative data, and we believe 90% of experiments should take 2 weeks maximum to run, or else you don't have velocity and you don't have quantity of experimentation. And if it's a big experiment, like a big partnership or a big campaign, we break it down into smaller experiments. So we test the riskiest stuff first and then break it down. See if early signals of, ooh, was this a good idea, yes or no? If I can't get people to click, I'll never get people to buy, for example. If I can't get that partner to open my email, I'll never be able to sell the partnership. Then we work. This is actually the hardest part. We try to execute, get the experiment done. This is what a typical backlog looks like. So these are the experiments that are being planned. In the middle, the ones that are active. And at the right, the ones that are analyzed. If you don't have between 5 and 20 experiments running simultaneously, then you could be doing a lot better. And there's companies out there doing this that are probably going to grow faster, I think. I'm not using fear tactics. I really, really believe this. Then we have some rituals to embed experimentation within the organization. So for example, we have a fail board, which we put on the wall, and also a success board now, because I was told I needed to be more positive. What we do is once we have 10 fails, we have a cocktail party. And usually the fail of the month is like a head of a department. I was the fail of the month 3 months in a row for stupid experiments I ran. But imagine when you're coming into a new company and you're onboarding and one of the co-founders is the fail of the month. Imagine what that does culturally. You feel like, ooh, I can really fail here. It's okay to make mistakes. Funny anecdote, our first fail party, we all ordered sushi from a cheap place and we all got food poisoning. So then we had to make a difference between a fail and a fuck up because that wasn't really an experiment. It was just ordering from the cheapest place possible. We've made a bit of money since, so we can have the better sushi. And then, yeah, this is a really nice ritual. It's a conversation starter to have within the organization. Then you need to study the data. This is the most annoying part, but it's the most important. The best growth teams are the ones that actually analyze the data. And then what happens if it's a fail? Try to find out why it didn't work and insert all the data into your documentation. And if it wins, you create a playbook. We double down on it, double down on what's actually working, like a basic principle of blackjack. So we have the wins and the fails inconclusive. This is probably the best onboarding tool we have inside our organizations or the organizations that use it. New person comes into the company, they could look at the whole experimentation journey, everything we've tested, what worked, what didn't work, really understand. And we're totally okay for people to retest something that's already been tested. And then in larger organizations, we like it to be shared from department to department. So for example, at Pampers, they had beautiful, beautiful use cases that then got shared to the other assets and the other products within the organization. So try to spread the knowledge. Well, that's not good. So like I said, let me see what I got left. Just enough. So this is sort of what the journey looks like. And usually once you get past this phase, your 20th experiment, you'll start to get really good at this, and it's what we call high velocity testing. And typically we get about 25% of experiments right. So this was a B2C subscription food e-commerce company. About 1/4 of the experiments are a win. This was B2B and B2C transactional. I think it's the same thing. About 1 out of 5 experiments was a win. This was B2B wealth management from ING, so really hardcore old school organization. They're running 14 experiments per sprint, and they get about 1/3. The larger companies are actually better at getting wins than the smaller ones because you have great business intelligence. They have great data to play with. They just don't look at it, let's say. So what about the people? How does this fit within the organization? Because it's not actually that simple. How do we make these people 80% self-reliant, whether it's the people or the teams? So what you usually need is a transition team and a leadership team. These are the first steps. Transition team is basically a team of leaders who have high stakes in the project and who can remove blockers. So they ensure that the priorities are clearly set, that people have commitment on time to work on this, they don't have 50 million things that they're doing, and they remove blockers when blockers come along. There's a lot of blockers: branding, compliance, governance, egos, your US sales team. They help to remove these blockers. And then usually you need a growth team. There's already a growth team in all of your companies. You just don't know it yet. You're not calling it a growth team. There's actually always people already doing this within the company. We try to help them to evangelize it to the rest of the organization. The first growth person, sometimes a growth team is just one person. It's usually your most T-shaped player inside the organization. Somebody who's obsessed with tooling, understands behavioral psychology, fast with a computer, wants to test, already has a knack for this kind of stuff. And then the growth team looks something like this. That's sort of step 2. And you know, this is really a cookie cutter approach of what a growth team looks like. I've never actually seen a growth team look exactly like this. Sometimes it's 2 sales plus 1 customer support plus a designer. But it's the idea of having something multidisciplinary, right? Here we have a growth PM with a growth engineer, somebody who can help on the front end and the back end, with a growth designer, somebody who can design beautiful assets fast, and a growth analyst. Although I think everybody in that team should be a bit of an analyst. It's just looking at data and understanding sort of correlations. And data, by the way, it's not just numbers, huh? It's also looking at the qualitative data. And what we believe is they should all be T-shaped. So they should all, we want to expand people's bandwidth. This is why we started a training company. We believe that people were too siloed in their way of thinking, not just in their department, but in their way of thinking. So this is like a developer, specializes in Ruby, maybe some JavaScript, understands a bit of SEO, a bit of UX, but it's really difficult for him to have conversations with the designer in the team, and with the product owner, and with the business analyst, for example. And through T-shaping, we expand the creative bandwidth of people, the cognitive bandwidth of people. They start to have growth options and ideas that they never had before that start to pop up because they understand different disciplines. We believe that we're entering the years of the T-shaped player, the sort of generalist specialist. This is an example from a team that went through some of our trainings. See, very siloed at first. On the heat map, you can see like a lot of specialization. And through a little bit opening these growth options, we were able to expand their cognitive bandwidth. They became much more creative on the types of experiments that they would run. They understood possibilities or tactics that they had no idea about. Funnily enough, some developers or business analysts are some of the best marketeers I've ever seen. If you want to implement this, I would say that the next steps, once you've gotten the mindset and understands the tool and the process, it's usually this, to find a first project that's easy, which means that the leadership team already gets it. They're already into it. They don't see this as a threat. Some people see like validating or de-risking as a threat. The execution team has been identified. You've got a team that's already working on this project that's already kind of savvy. A project that's fast, usually top of the funnel. New campaigns, new landing pages, new ads, new product launches, new innovation projects. If you have an innovation lab, some team in the innovation lab, a team that already has freedom and not too many stakeholders, and something that's impactful. So it's run a 5-second test, nobody cares. Nobody's going to care if that project is not important. So it's usually something that's important on the roadmap, important to the key stakeholders, so that we can use this to showcase it to the rest of the organization. This can actually be applied at any stage of the development of a product, whether it's the discovery phase, where you're looking for new trends, you're trying to find out sort of what are new things we can tap into, whether it's the problem-solution fit, you've got a product live, but you're still trying to figure out, does this solve a real pain? Who's my target audience? What's the actual solution to solve this pain? At the product market fit, where you're trying to find out who exactly your exact market is, and whether you have retention, where there's real engagement on the product, the service, and also, of course, at the scaling phase, where we're trying to optimize key metrics and we're trying to grab as much market share as possible. So where we're trying to optimize customer acquisition cost and customer lifetime value. And basically the sweet spot is here. If you want to start with a first project with this next week, or something like this, you want to go for stuff that's fast and easy, and that has a high impact within your organization. That's the sweet spot up there. Let's start really, really easy to be able to showcase it. Cool. 2 things to remember before you go. Well, actually 3 things. First thing is, remember about this quantity of experimentation. The quality will come naturally from your people, or from you. I've never seen bad quality experiments from people who actually care about the company that they work for or with. Focus on the quantity. Being wrong might hurt you a little bit. A false positive, it might hurt you. We call it limited blast radius. Being slow, it will just make you slower than the competition. It will kill you. It's a bit dramatic. And then finally, remember, try to be a bit radical in your ideas. Remember Takuro Kobayashi. Try to be a little bit extreme as well. So today we're actually launching in Norway with Lars. Where's Lars? Lars is over there. And we're extremely proud and happy to be able to launch within Epicenter, within the epicenter of Oslo. If you're interested in this kind of thing, we're hanging out downstairs at the desk with all of the posters, just down and on the right. We can talk about whether this can be a fit for you. And I just say, you know, every single time someone's made an investment from using some of their consulting budget or their training budget to come to the course, they've ended up creating more value from coming to that training and having that expansion of mind with the process than had it been spent on one of these campaigns or had it been spent on actual consultants. So I sort of dare you to come and see what you can actually do, what you're capable of doing after 2 days like this. And if you don't feel like chatting, you can also follow this link over here, grow.ac/IAB. And then you can just leave your details and stuff. You will be violently retargeted if you go into that link. And I'm not GDPR compliant, but fuck it for now. Just leave your details. Please don't sue me. So that's it. So yeah, thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.